Well, thanks for having me.
All right, so 12 noon, are you keeping the government open, or reopening it, I should say?
Well, we're very hopeful that it will. You know, in the House, we passed a continuing resolution, and we didn't want to play any politics. So we funded the Children's Health Insurance Program. Unfortunately, the Democrats didn't want to do that, and we funded the government for the next month so we could solve this DACA issue. We've been meeting on a bicameral, bipartisan basis in my office every single day since the meeting with the down at the White House, and we were making good progress. Unfortunately, on the Senate side, they shut down, but they can't tell us what they shut down over, so it's very difficult to try to figure out how to get out of this. And
you know, this morning we had another guest, a D.C. analyst type, suggesting that Chuck Schumer was, quote-unquote, sucking in the GOP because if there ends up being another short-term extension, a short-term extension, all of a sudden you're up against the March debt ceiling hike. This could get pretty nasty. Does he have a point?
No, what Chuck was doing in this process, I mean, he doesn't know why he's doing it, so he can't tell you why and what it takes to get out of it. But unfortunately, when you start this on a weekend, nobody wins on this. But when you get into Monday, this is a real shutdown now. These are people not going to work. This is a military not being paid. This is children's health insurance in a number of states being shut down. This is a serious situation, and no one's going to win in this. That's why I think when you look at the compromise that Mitch McConnell said, actually brought people back over, but again, Schumer said he's not sure of it because he can't tell you what he wants out of it.
So do you think that come noon that the Senate should consider just opening the government with 51 votes?
I think they need to open the government, yes. If it takes 51 votes, do it then, because that's the same percentage it took to keep the government open in the House. This has become really a real challenge that people would hold you hostage, that you have to believe with them 100%. Instead of what this government has really created them on, you have to find compromise.
Leader McCarthy, some would say the far reaches of your party, your own party, are holding the rest of the caucus hostage with demands that Senator Graham has called extreme and unrealistic, speaking of their views on immigration.
Well, that's not true, because if you look at the votes, tell me where those extreme elements of our conference were. Keeping the government open. So, I mean, you can play politics on both sides. It's easy to do. I'd rather put the people before politics and solve this problem. So if you're serious about that, why are you afraid to have the government open where you can go back to the table and you can solve whatever problem you want? Look, we have passed in this side of the House all the appropriation bills. We have passed the supplemental funding for those in California with the fires and the mudslides, in Texas, in Florida, in Puerto Rico, in Virgin Islands. That's all being held up by Chuck Schumer.
Well, but
the children's health insurance is held up by Chuck Schumer. All because he's worried about something in March.
Senator Schumer was said to have offered full funding for the wall. If that's the case, why don't we have a deal?
Well, that's not true, because when we were sitting in the White House in a bicameral, bipartisan, we narrowed it to 4 topics to solve the DACA issue. Because what's most important here is you don't want to be back here in another 2 years dealing with this problem again. Let's solve it once and for all. So, yes, you have to deal with border security, and he didn't offer full funding for it. He may claim that. He said, I'll promise it in the sometime you'll vote for it. He didn't deal with, if you're going to do with chain migration, which brings a tremendous problem in the future that will be right back here, or even in the merit system of what we're going to do going forward. Let's be responsible here, solve a problem to put America on the 21st century going forward to be able to deal with these problems.
This all seemed to start, though, in that now famous meeting where you were there and the president was there, and he said, bring me a bill, I'll take the heat. I'll sign it, and then it was whether it was going to be a clean DACA bill or not, to which you had to jump in and explain to the president that your parts of the party were not for what the president seemed to be suggesting at that long conference table.
Well, no, that wasn't just my side of the aisle. That's the Democrats as well. And what you didn't see in that meeting before everybody departed, and remember, you have senators, you have members of the House, you have Republicans, you have Democrats. Every single person at that table, and they came from all spectrums of the philosophy on this, they all agreed that we would deal with 4 issues, those 4 issues I just named, to solve this problem. And because the president was able to bring us together, that really kick-started the process to actually solve this problem. We have been in my office just the day before the shutdown. It was Senator Durbin, it was Steny Hoyer, the minority whip, it was the White House chief of staff, it was myself, it was Senator Cornyn, and it was the Secretary of Homeland Security. And you know what they all said leaving that meeting? That this was the most progress we had made. But the next day, they shut it down. If they want to get back to the table, open the government back up, let's get back to the progress we were making, let's solve this problem for the American public, and let's stop having these temper tantrums and putting the American public in jeopardy.
Majority Leader, to what extent has this shutdown soured the anniversary of the president's first year in office and brought to the forefront the kind of divisions and polarizations that exist in politics and in the country at the moment?
Kind of ironic that the shutdown happened on his anniversary, and when you talk to the other side, they get a little smile in themselves that they dislike this president, they don't want to give him an opportunity, and they want to soil the country based upon when an anniversary is. I think that's wrong. You can disagree with somebody, but let's solve a problem, let's put people before politics and get this done.
Let's talk about people then. Are you for permanent legal status of the Dreamers, personally?
I personally want to solve this problem. If you deal with all four of those, I don't have a problem with this. And I think one thing that we can have done here, I do not want to be back at the table one more time. And if you really understand the immigration system, we treat people differently who comes here illegally. We tie the hands of the border security of whether somebody can go back. So if somebody comes from Mexico, yes, we'll send them back if it's contiguous. If it's from another country, no, they get a ticket and they're set in here for 20 days, then they're free to go about the country. And what happens in that 7 years before they come back into the court? Yes, they probably got married and they probably have children. So now we have a real dilemma here because you've got Americans and somebody illegally, and now you're tearing across a family. That is unhelpful, and why would we repeat those same mistakes? So let's solve the border security problem. And then when it really comes to chain migration, should someone be bringing in yes, I think their family, their children, their spouse, but should they bring in their brother and their sister and all their family, or the married children? That's expanding it beyond. I think there's an easy place where we can find compromise, where both sides can get there and actually help those individuals that need to be across.
We have a Trump tweet later. Let me just put this out there for a second. Nothing terribly new. He said the Democrats are turning down services and security for citizens in favor of services and security for non-citizens. Not good. You know, there are some people, obviously, just based on polling, that does resonate with a fair number of people. I just wonder overall, you mentioned how the shutdown has a lot of bad effects, but it's also, you know, they're trying to take the sting out of it here as well. Is the risk going to be that Americans just start shrugging their shoulders and going, you know, shutdown, no shutdown, I don't care? You know what I mean? What is there a lot of potency in today's decision, I wonder?
Well, I think the most important thing we do today, open the government up and solve a problem. And there's a lot of truth in some of that tweet, because the one thing that's happening here, DACA doesn't go into effect till March 5th, right?
And
but what happens to those in the military today?
Yeah, what about, we got the injunction, right? So what happens
so
if they
that
rule
will continue on then?
Right,
the court ruling keeps it open. So you're shutting the government down over something that doesn't exist today. But you know what does exist today? Children's health insurance programs in the 7 states that are going to shut down.
Yeah,
you know what exists today? Those individuals in the military not being paid.
Senator
it's
McCaskill,
putting our country at harm.
With respect, Mr. Leader, Senator McCaskill attempted to bring a bill to the floor of the Senate to pay the military and continue with death benefits, et cetera, and the Majority Leader McConnell wouldn't let that happen.
Well, you know what else they didn't attempt to bring to the floor? The appropriation bill that funds the military, because the military has been cut for the last number of years to keep us in strength, and they've been holding it there. Did they bring the supplemental that gave the funding issue to those in the floods and the hurricanes? No. Did they put the bill forward that's going to fund the children's health insurance program? Yeah, it's easy to do after you're in a shutdown because you want some political cover. Let's not play small games. Let's not hold everything up. They have held every bill up in the process, and then when you listen to them saying government's not working, they wanted this in an anniversary time, and I think that's wrong.
Yeah,
look, I've been on the other side of this, and I realize shutting the government down does not work.